we're seeing that nothing is done in a vacuum, DA, as we bring you back in to know that one deal is going to lead to the next deal. Yes. And we're all watching Gordon Hayward now. He's got meetings this weekend, and we thought that where Blake Griffin or Paul George landed could impact where Gordon Hayward went. So now what do we know?
Sure. Well, look, it doesn't mean that Boston can't get Gordon Hayward. That was always going to be the first thing that happened, right? So that's still possible. But I think it does to help Miami, certainly, as the other team the other non-incumbent team that's trying to get Gordon Hayward. I don't think you can write Utah off. Look, Ricky Rubio is a good player, and they still have a lot of good talent there, and he likes it out there. I don't think he's unhappy out there by any stretch of the imagination. That's a good young team that's getting better. So I think the Jazz still have a good chance of keeping him, but I think it's a pretty even race right now, and Boston would have been a bigger favorite had they been able to get Paul George.
All right, DA, we'll get back to you here in a couple of minutes, as the big news is that Paul George traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's bring in our capologist. You read his work on Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report, cover the Lakers. Eric Pincus with us. What type of position is Boston in now as Danny Ainge evaluates the landscape with Paul George off the market and Blake Griffin off the market?
Well, obviously, Gordon Hayward's out there, so that's something they can look at. And they don't quite have enough space to pay him, roughly the $30 million, but they're not far off from getting there. So they can make some small moves that don't really hurt their true depth. They don't give away any, maybe one or two guys. They would lose guys like Amir Johnson, who's a free agent, Tyler Zeller. So they can make it work. Or they can keep their depth, and they still have so many wealth of assets from all the draft picks. They have young guys like Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I mean, this is a team that is already the best team in the East by record, not by final result. And they've got a shot to keep growing and growing. Now, there's a point where you say, man, should Danny Ainge have gone for it and get that all-star? And yeah, it would have changed the shape of the team. They wouldn't have the same depth. But it's hard to get a Paul George. It's hard to get a Jimmy Butler. These guys are almost impossible to get. So maybe they held on too tightly, but there's still so many things they can do. I wouldn't write off Boston's offseason as a failure. Here, it just started, just a few minutes ago. They got some time.
Ooh, speaking of stealth bombers, OKC, we know we didn't expect them to get involved, but there's always Pat Riley looming. And the man who's outside of Pat Riley's house right now is Ira Winderman from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Ira, how far have we come that Hassan Whiteside is part of a recruiting pitch to Gordon Hayward?
Yeah, that might be the scariest development of free agency right there. Forget everything else. The fact that Hassan's going to be in the room tomorrow with Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg and Eric Spoelstra and Gordon Hayward, I guess the good thing is we'll be able to follow the whole thing on Snapchat. So there is that advantage. But already today, guys, everything you guys have been reporting, there hasn't been a single move made tonight that did not impact the Heat. Whether it's the Jazz now saying, well, would you rather play with Goran Dragic and Hassan Whiteside or Ricky Rubio and Rudy Gobert? Whether it's the fact that the Heat could sit in that meeting tomorrow with Gordon Hayward and saying, hey, when you go to Boston tomorrow, just a reminder, you won't be joined by Paul George. To the fact is, when you look at this entire situation now with Blake Griffin out of it, it's not a matter of the Heat deciding, well, which is the best direction for us to go. They're going all in. And keep in mind that if Gordon Hayward stays in Utah right now, the chance to get to that super max level and get to all NBA with so much talent concentrated in the Western Conference, he's almost going to be overwhelmed by that talent that you have to wonder if guys, when this thing continues for real starting at midnight, doesn't turn the other way. You would think guys who try to seek sort of safe harbor away from the Western Conference the way that is shaping up out there.
I know everybody makes a big deal about how the Heat finished the season, but let's be realistic. Just simply adding Gordon Hayward does not make this team a contender right away. So what is the mastermind, Pat Riley, thinking he will pair with Hayward? What can he do over these next few days if he is able to land Gordon?
Well, I think it's the fact if he lands Gordon Hayward, which means that the Celtics aren't getting Gordon Hayward, and obviously we know now they're not getting Paul George, I think he could sell Gordon Hayward and is, hey, you can get to the conference finals here. We can be the team battling the Cavaliers and maybe give the Cavaliers more of a battle than Boston did last year with Whiteside, with Goran Dragic, and probably with one of Dion Waiters or James Johnson. Remember, James Johnson and Hayward have the same agent, so they can be sort of working in concert together a little bit. I think that's the pitch, and that will simply grow this team. When you look, so many teams in the East now that made the playoffs last year are going in the opposite direction. Indiana and Chicago and Atlanta, and who knows what's left of Toronto by the time this even tonight is over in free agency. I think that's what Pat Riley's selling, is that you can grow with this team, be in a state without income tax, have great winters unlike Salt Lake City or any other place you've been right there, and just sell the whole package of just growing with the team. Basically selling that, hey, Boston has a bunch of draft picks. We have a bunch of tangible, ready-to-win-now attitude on this team. Come here. I think that's what he's going to try to sell them.
As the television icon in South Florida, Jason Jackson says, it's paradise. It's always paradise. 12 months a year. I know, he made the sales pitch. You did. Hey, you mentioned Toronto. We're going to get to Kyle Lowry and whether he's staying or maybe will be lured away by Minnesota. But for Miami's purposes here, how realistic would Serge Ibaka be? And with the draft pick they made and with Whiteside, how does that all work now if they were to make a pitch to Ibaka?
You know, the Heat have been looking to Ibaka now for months. They were there at the trading deadline when they knew that Orlando was going to make a move, and it didn't work out there. Pat Riley, when he gets fascinated with players, doesn't move off of players very quickly. And Eric Spoelstra has a feeling that he can make anyone in his positionalist system work. And it was really interesting. After they drafted Bam Adebayo, Eric Spoelstra stood up when everyone is talking three-pointers and small ball and basically said, if you want to win, you have to be different. I can foresee lineups where I'm going to try to put 5 guys who are 6'9" out there on the floor and try to play that way. And when I did speak to people around the league, that's what I sort of got in return from them, was that if you think you're going to beat the Warriors at their game, if you think you're going to beat the Cavaliers at their game, you're not. You have to come in a little from left field. You have to try something a little bit different. So I think that's what the Heat are doing. And if anyone has had success with power ball and big men, from Pat Riley, from Kareem to Patrick to Alonzo Mourning to Shaq, he still believes in that. So while everyone else is going small to the perimeter, I think Pat Riley might just bring back a little bit of thuggery with the Heat.
Thuggery from Ira Winderman.
Easy, Ira.
Wow.
Easy, Ira. Easy.
Wow.
I'm just a studio gangster. I know it. That's fine.
Friday night at NBA TV.
I love it. Come on, Ira's been around. He know what time it is.
All right, Ira, don't go far. May need to call you up a little later on.
I'm just sipping cognac here with Pat Riley. No problem.
I love it. I love it.
Is it warm down there?
Come on.
It's warm enough that Gordon Hayward will realize where he is.
Gordon Hayward scheduled to meet with the Heat over the weekend. That's Ira Winderman from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Let's get the pulse here on the fact that Paul George is not going to Boston. Did Danny Ainge miss an opportunity?
Oh, it certainly looks that way. But you know what? You know, it takes two to get a deal done. And clearly, if you're putting the assets out there and the team doesn't want what you're offering, then the deal's not going to get done. But you have the feeling that when you look at what, you know, the Pacers are walking away with in this deal, and you look at that Celtics treasure trove, and you're thinking, wow, you know, there's a lot of nice pieces from a player standpoint and from a draft pick standpoint where it's hard to imagine that Boston could not have put together a better deal. You know, but the Celtics they were intent on seeing Gordon Hayward's situation all the way through and then making the trade for Paul George. But clearly, the Pacers were not willing to wait, and they took what they felt was the best deal available.
Does that put more pressure on Danny Ainge to land Gordon Hayward this weekend? Huge. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on him because, you know, this team wants to build off the momentum that they gained in going to the conference finals and you know, having Isaiah Thomas, you know, be an MVP candidate and things of that nature. And the only way you can legitimately build off of that is to go out and get a difference-making player, a guy like Gordon Hayward. When your plan to form a super team fell apart when you lost Paul George, the next best thing you can do is to improve your roster. And to do that, you have to get a guy like Gordon Hayward, because if they can't get him, I think you have to look at this offseason as a disappointment/failure on the Celtics' part. Where does this place, do we say former Hawks forward?
Well, you know, I think it's probably, you can probably say that. I don't see how they bring him back. He's earned a great payday. You know, he's been a very productive player. And Atlanta has said they're not going to offer him a full 5-year max to re-sign him. And I understand where they're coming from, but the bottom line is I think he'll probably be somewhere else. I'm certainly looking at Phoenix right now. They were supposed to talk to Blake Griffin. They didn't. They will talk to Paul Millsap. Denver, I think, is a strong possibility as well. A good team. I think Brian mentioned it earlier tonight. I think he would be a great fit playing next to Jokic as a stretch four who can face the basket, who can facilitate. This is not a team with a great point guard right now. Millsap's a playmaker out front, so that makes a lot of sense. So one of those two teams I would certainly think will be in the mix, and you can't discount Houston. I'm not sure how they can get to where the other two teams could get financially, but they could certainly, they have pieces to potentially offer in a deal.
All right, DA, great work. And only a few more minutes until the 8 a.m. Eastern show, so be ready for that. Kristen and Steve Jackson will be along for that one. Let's bring back in Eric Pincus, our capologist here. A lot of teams with some money to spend who are looking for some proven veteran talent.
Yes.
What works for Paul Millsap?
Well, Phoenix, they have money. They can go spend. Here's an interesting idea. What about Minnesota? They just got Jeff Teague. Now, they don't have enough money yet, but they've got maybe $15 million. So how much is he going to get? What if they could dump off a Cole Aldrich? Teams can make more than one move, and that's what you got to remember. Just because they don't have it right now, maybe they can make a move or two, get it up to 20. I mean, how much is Paul? He's eligible for 30-something million, but he may not get that. So maybe he can get a reasonable amount, be a part of that, a winning situation with